They say he died at 21. A single gunshot in the dark, a body on the floor, a legend put neatly to rest. But if you believe that, you haven't been paying attention. His name was Henry McCarty. He also went by William H. Bonney. Aliases were survival tools in the 19th century West, not personality traits. So history remembers him as Billy the Kid. He was likely born on November 23, 1859, in the crowded, disease-soaked slums of New York City, a place where children learned early that no one was coming to save them. He was a skinny Irish-American boy raised by a single mother, Catherine McCarty, a woman constantly chasing opportunity and constantly outrunning poverty. They drifted west through Indiana, Kansas, Colorado boarding houses, temporary work, fresh starts that never quite took hold. Tuberculosis followed them like a curse. By the time they reached Silver City, New Mexico territory, Catherine was dying. Billy was 14 when she took her last breath. No father, no siblings. No money, no one to vouch for him. In the American frontier, that was not just tragedy. It was a death sentence with a delayed fuse. Billy learned quickly. He was polite, soft-spoken, quick with a smile. People remembered him as friendly, even charming. But survival demanded flexibility. By 15, he was arrested for stealing laundry, a crime so small it barely made the records, but large enough to introduce him to the inside of a jail cell. He escaped through a chimney. It wouldn't be the last time. By 17, Billy was in Arizona territory, working odd jobs and sleeping wherever the desert allowed. That's where he crossed paths with Frank Windy Cahill, a blacksmith twice his size with a habit of humiliating smaller men for sport. One night, the bullying went too far. Billy shot him. Cahill died. The law called it murder. The men who were there called it self-defense. Billy didn't wait around to see which version would win. He ran. He vanished into the southern plains, drifting between ranches, cow camps, gambling halls, and gun smoke. He learned how to ride hard, shoot straight, and disappear when the heat came down. His reputation grew, not loud, not flashy, but dangerous in the way quiet men often are. People noticed he did not drink much, did not curse much, and did not brag at all. But when pushed, he finished fights. Then came Lincoln County, New Mexico, a place where business, law, and violence were the same thing wearing different coats. The region was controlled by the Murphy-Dolan faction. They owned the stores that sold food, the banks that held debt, the beef contracts that fed the army, and the men wearing sheriff's badges. If you worked outside their system, you didn't work long. Into that powder keg rode a young English cattleman named John Tunstall. Tunstall believed in fair trade, honest competition, written contracts. In Lincoln County, that belief bordered on suicide. Billy rode for him. For the first time since his mother died, Billy had something resembling stability, a job, a roof. A sense, however fragile, that he belonged somewhere. Then Tunstall was murdered. Shot down by men connected to the Murphy-Dolan faction, under the thin excuse of a legal warrant no one could produce. His body was left where it fell. Billy took it personally. He joined a group that called themselves the Regulators, young men sworn in as deputies under questionable authority, armed with warrants, grudges, and grief. They weren't saints. They weren't even especially organized, but they were motivated. They killed Sheriff William Brady in broad daylight, unloading bullets into the man who represented everything corrupt in Lincoln County. They tracked down others tied to Tunstall's murder. Each killing deepened the blood feud. What followed became known as the Lincoln County War. 5 days of gunfire echoing through dusty streets. Buildings torched. Civilians trapped inside homes as bullets chewed through walls. The U.S. Army eventually intervened not to deliver justice, but to restore order. And order favored the men already in power. The Murphy faction survived. But Billy did not. He was labeled an outlaw, a murderer, a criminal beyond redemption. Newspapers exaggerated his body count. Dime novels turned him into a monster or a folk hero depending on who was selling ink that week. But here is the part most people never hear. Billy tried to quit. Yes, you heard that right, Billy tried to quit. In 1879, Governor Lew Wallace, Civil War general, politician and future author of Ben-Hur, offered Billy a deal. Testify against the men who murdered Tunstall and receive a full pardon. Billy agreed. He testified. He turned himself in. He trusted the law, but Wallace never came through. Politics changed. Pressure mounted. Promises evaporated. Billy was left exposed, marked, and hunted once more. From that moment on, the system had made its choice, so Billy slipped back into the cracks. Until April 28, 1881. He was captured and locked inside the Lincoln County Courthouse, guarded by deputies James Bell and Bob Ollinger, men who hated him, mocked him, and underestimated him. Billy asked to use the bathroom. Somewhere between the cell and the stairs, he slipped his cuffs. He wrestled Bell's pistol free and shot him on the staircase. Bell died bleeding on the courthouse steps. Billy did not run, he waited. When Bob Ollinger came sprinting back from lunch, shotgun in hand, Billy stepped into the hallway. He took Ollinger's own weapon, the same shotgun Ollinger used to threaten and taunt him, and fired once. Witnesses later said Billy leaned out the courthouse window and called down to the street, "Guess I got him." 2. He saddled a horse and rode out of Lincoln for the last time. Now Pat Garrett, lawman, author, former friend, was tasked with ending the legend. Garrett claimed he tracked Billy to Fort Sumner, to the home of Pete Maxwell, where Billy often stayed. According to Garrett, on the night of July 14, 1881, Billy stepped into a dark bedroom and was shot twice. Billy the Kid was dead. No autopsy. No official corpse photo. Buried before sunrise. And from the very beginning, people questioned it. The body was viewed briefly, the lighting was poor. The burial was rushed. Some said the man in the grave was older and heavier. So that was not Billy at all, but a dead outlaw is useful. A living one is inconvenient. History moved on, until it did not. Nearly 70 years later, an old man walked into a Texas courthouse in Hamilton County. His name was Brushy Bill Roberts. He did not want money. He did not want fame. He did not want a book deal or a monument. He wanted the pardon he'd been promised in 1879. People laughed at first. Another old man chasing ghosts. Another frontier fairy tale. Then Brushy started talking. He described the Lincoln Courthouse interior in exact detail, where the rifles were stored, how the staircase angled, the position of doors and windows long since remodeled or destroyed. He recited the names of the Regulators. He recalled the layout of Tunstall's ranch, fencing patterns, livestock counts, even ledger discrepancies no historian had published. He named the make and gauge of the shotgun used in the 1881 escape. He quoted court testimony not available in public records. Then came the physical evidence. Photographic analysts performed overlays between Brushy and the only confirmed image of Billy the Kid, the Fort Sumner tintype. The result: a 93% facial match. Brushy bore a scar on his left thigh consistent with a gunshot wound Billy sustained in Arizona. He had black powder burns on his cheek, matching accounts of the close-range blast that killed Ollinger. His teeth, crooked, broken, twisted, matched 1880s eyewitness descriptions of Billy's mouth. Handwriting experts compared samples. Same slant, same loops, same pressure, same grammatical quirks. Linguists noted speech patterns that matched period descriptions of Billy's voice. He did not just know the story. He was the story. More than a dozen surviving townspeople, former regulators, neighbors, even their children identified Brushy as the same man they'd known decades earlier. No one ever conclusively disproved him. In 1950, Brushy went before Governor Thomas Mabry of New Mexico to formally request the pardon. By then, Brushy had suffered 2 strokes. Reporters mocked him. Cameras flashed in his face. He stammered. He faltered. The hearing turned into a spectacle. The pardon was denied. Less than a month later, Brushy Bill Roberts was dead. No DNA test. No public exhumation. No investigation of the Fort Sumner grave, which had been flooded, disturbed, and unverified since the early 1900s. Even the governor's office later admitted there was never a formal effort to prove or disprove Brushy's claim. Because if Brushy was Billy, then Pat Garrett lied. The law failed. And the most famous outlaw in American history did not die in 1881. He walked out of Lincoln and lived another 69 years. Hiding in plain sight, still chasing the justice he was promised as a teenager. So ask yourself, why didn't they test the DNA? Why didn't they try to disprove him? And how did he know everything? I will tell you why. Because Brushy Bill Roberts wasn't pretending. He was tired of hiding. And this time he came to finish the story himself. Till we ride again, partner. Keep your powder dry, your story straight, and your boots out of the fire. And never trust a quiet saloon.